Welcome. Start the recording. Welcome again, our weekly New Gambia platform, Live Talk Show. Today is October 24th, 2021. And today we're going to be discussing about the Freedom of Information Bill that was passed by the National Assembly. This bill will definitely help us to be accountable, and information that is needed from the government officials could be provided and will be accessible. And this is going to be very good for Gambians because it will show transparency and accountability of things. So this is a very good step forward. Another thing we're going to be doing is having a guest here today to talk about the state of our country, how, what is it, why should we change government, and who are the, suitable folks to lead us through this change. We're gonna have Mr. Momodou Krubally, who is gonna be joining us shortly. Sam, my co-host and co-panelist, is here from Indiana, and I'm your host, Momodou Samwane. Welcome to the show. So Sam, let's go into Freedom of Information Bill. What are your takes on that?
Well, thanks, Mr. Swanee. I really appreciate this time, and definitely good to see you here again. The freedom of information is very crucial, is very important in any democratic society. When you have democracy, you need to have transparency, and you need to have that freedom, just like we have freedom of speech, freedom of information, all of those are very important. They are part of democracy, and it's the right thing to do. It's the right bill to pass. It's long overdue. It should have been done a long time ago. I would just say that we just didn't have the right National Assembly members with the right mindset that should pass that bill, or should have passed that bill a long time ago. And maybe we have the right people. We had the right people in there. They just didn't think about that, or didn't really want to bring that up, or they just could not collaborate and be on the same page to pass it, because our National Assembly usually, in every case, you've always seen from Jem's time up to now, you've always seen that they are divided. They are divided depending on what political party they come from. They're divided, and they're not, sometimes they like to work together, sometimes they don't want to work together. They work against each other. But so passing this bill was a great achievement. And it is something that's encouraged, because right to information is very important. There has been a lot of things that happen in the Gambia, and unfortunately, the freedom of information not being there, bill not being there, it deprived the general public from knowing exactly what happened and knowing the truth in some cases. And it also deprived the media from really accessing the information they need. And this is what creates transparency. If the media can access information from the government, media is the liaison between the government and the general public. Their job, part of their job, not the only job, part of their job is to go seek information, get accurate information, and report that to the people, so that the people can know what is happening, and also make sure that the National Assembly can hold the government accountable as well. I will give examples. There has been rumors and a lot of talk about different things, and of course, and like they say, where there's smoke, there's fire. Something happened. So where there's smoke, there's fire. Obviously, so those are the scenarios where we need our media to go. You and I cannot access that information. We are in America, and people, even people in the Gambia, they're sitting out there. They want to know the truth. They don't know, and nobody can give them the information. And the government officials are not going to volunteer and give them the information, because they will fear their job, that they can lose their job for being honest and say the right thing. And not only that, they can fear their job for giving out the information. Well, now that that information is made public and also is authorized by the law to make it public for people, it makes it a lot easier for people to know what's going on. But help media to reveal information that the people need to know as part of our democracy, but also help the National Assembly investigate when they need to investigate certain things, be able to look at things and hold the executive branch accountable. Example, in the past, a long time ago, a couple of years ago, when we all heard that there was 33 million or 35 million, some are saying 33, some are saying 35. I don't know which one, but I know that, like I said, where there's smoke, there's fire. So there's a truth to it. There was this amount of money that was deposited in the First Lady's account, and recently even the president talked about that. So this is nothing secret now. What happened, the president talked about what happened.
Yeah, it's not secret, of course. Yeah.
So that is something that at that time, media should have been able to go and find that information and report exactly what happened. Okay, so that is a freedom of information that we need to know. We need to know why 33 million goes to the First Lady's account. If it belongs to the government, why is it going there? Were there not other alternatives for that money to go into the government rather than going to an individual's account? All of those. And then the National Assembly can raise that question. Why? Okay. Then we've also seen.
I think that one. The president said that was the account readily available, and that was what he thought of from his feet. Why can't we just put it at the First Lady's account?
Yeah,
but it was coming for a project.
That is where conflict of interest comes. You see, when you're in administration, in any administration, you want to follow ethics and code of conduct. As a president, and any president, anyone in leadership role, you've got to lead by example. Dividing money to an individual's account, the money that belongs to the government, for example, is a conflict of interest. It should not have happened. Period. Okay, so things like that should not have happened. We've heard scandals like the diplomatic passport, scandal, the diplomatic passport scandal. There's been rumors, there've been things, and individuals investigated themselves and tried to seek information. But it would have been nice for media to really show up in the office and find the truth and tell the people what happened. And in that interview, or in that access to that information for the media, if they reveal the truth there, it would have been easier for the authorities to say, all right, now we know what happened. Let's investigate this. Yeah, and really launch a quick investigation into this and come to the bottom line and see who is involved and who is not involved. Okay, that clears the rumor. Whoever is involved or was involved in this should have been held accountable that time. They should have been held accountable. If they are government officials, number one, they should have been suspended pending investigations. And that's what you call investigative suspension. You can suspend somebody while you investigate the case. And if you investigate the case, if it requires a police intervention, take them, get the police involved, let them investigate it. And if someone needs to be prosecuted, they should be prosecuted. And if they found guilty, well, once they found guilty, in fact, during the investigation, even before they are found guilty, if there is any wrongdoing at all by an individual in a government office, in a public office, because of that wrongdoing that's against the code of conduct and that is against the policy and procedures of the country, that person could be fired. They don't have to wait for court. They can immediately fire that person and then take it to court, prosecute the person knowing that there was wrongdoing. So now in the wrongdoing, when they prosecute to court, the court will decide whether they're guilty or not. But because of wrongdoing can terminate them and get them out of there. And that would have set an example. Again, that's another example of access to information, very crucial for people to know. The fertilizer scandal, came out. Same thing. Up to now, I don't know what happened. I don't know.
And even the president admitted that people were selling the fertilizers.
Those. You see, that's when you're a leader and responsible for something. That's when you take swift action. Whoever was selling that fertilizer, number one, will be terminated immediately, and number two, they need to be arrested and prosecuted because that belongs to the farmers. It's a government property. An individual cannot take that and sell it. That's conflict of interest. That should require them to go to jail. They should be prosecuted, found guilty, and taken to jail. That's what should have happened there. Okay, well, we don't.
I agree with you on that point, because if the president said that, this is wrong, and these folks' relatives were, selling it, instead of blaming those, you should just conduct an investigation and then hold those people accountable.
Exactly.
And setting an example. I mean, than complaining.
That's leadership. That's what we know in America. That's what happened in America. That's what we know. We don't see something go wrong and know is wrong and still leave that person there. That does not happen. And my company stores.
Yeah, that's like you are, you just complaining. I mean, which shouldn't be the role of a leader, right?
Exactly. Yep. In my company business, in our operation, if I see any of our stores that I'm responsible for, they're short $50. If an employee is short $50, and I know it's from that employee, they're short $50, I'm not going to continue to let them work. I'm going to put them on investigative suspension and find out. If I find out that $50 we found, it was something else, it was somewhere else, or we found it, and the employee had nothing to do with it, or was an honest mistake, then that employee can come back to work and continue, and we'll pay them. If it was not an honest mistake, it was something that employee did deliberately because of conflict of interest, that person get fired. Just that easy. You don't let them continue and admit, yep, there was a problem. And then, so what? When there's a problem, problems need resolve. They need solutions. We need to find a solution. And solution is get rid of the problem, get rid of the problem and set an example so you prevent that problem from happening again. You see, so the fertilizer scandal is another one. Now I go back, there's so many stories, I can't even remember. I didn't write anything down. I'm just thinking from my head. I remember the Minister of Health went to the National Assembly.
Yeah, that's another big one. That's another
COVID funds that the Gambia received. He went to the National Assembly and stood out there and admitted that there was inappropriate behavior by people by really giving misleading information, corruption in there, a lot of corruption and a lot of stuff that was illegal. That was illegal. So if the minister himself stood up there to say that there, I mean, if I were the minister, what I would have done in that position is when I find that out, I would take swift action by number one, I'm going to fire those people. I'm going to call the police to go arrest and investigate that, then prosecute. So by the time I get to the National Assembly, I can tell them the truth that this is what was happening, but I've already taken this action. You see, you just don't come and complain to the National Assembly without taking action. You need to take action. They need to have that authority. As a minister should have that authority to say, I've already fired them. I've already filed police report. Police have already arrested them, and the case is being investigated. And so here's what we need to do moving forward, and make a stop to that. You see, but unfortunately, our minister went to the National Assembly to complain. Basically, he was complaining there because he was fed up. He was frustrated with the situation. So all of these are things that, access to information would have really allowed our media to go deep into all of these and find that information for the general public and get it on the media for people to know. Gambians need to know. And once Gambians know what happened, then every Gambian can tell their National Assembly members, so what are you guys going to do about this? Because you need to hold the National Assembly should be able to hold the executive accountable. They need to tell them, what are you guys going to do? Are you demanding answers, or what are you going to do? Are you guys just sitting down and putting your hands together and folding your hands and waiting for the president or the executive branch to come tell you what happened? The National Assembly need to be just like in the United States. Congress can launch investigations by passing the president. They can say, forget the president. We're going to find out ourselves. Congress can launch those investigations and find the truth, and then if they see a wrongdoing, even from the president, that gives them the right to impeach. You see what I mean?
Yes.
That gives them that right to impeach because they are there representing the people. They want the truth. They want the people that they represent, the taxpayers, to know the truth. and to make sure that the taxpayers also know that since they elected those National Assembly members to be in the Congress, or in the United States in the Congress, they want to know that people know that they're doing their job. That's what they're there for. They're part of what they're there for is to be able to hold the executive accountable, to make sure that there's no corruption, to make sure there's not embezzlement of funds, misappropriation of funds, and all of those things that can happen that can waste their money, taxpayers' dollars, or money. Same thing in Gambia. The National Assembly should have questioned, and they should have gotten up and launched their own investigation and find the truth and confront the executive to come up with answers, give us answers, and take the right step so that the people that they represent know that they are there doing their job. But we don't see that in Gambia. I don't see that. I know they have subcommittees that are responsible for certain things, but there wasn't any freedom of information. So we don't know what happened after that. Anything that they investigated, they may have talked about it. You and I probably, you may know, I would say, I'll speak for myself. I don't know what happened. Anything that they investigated, I don't know what happened. What is the result? I don't know. So, you don't just, investigate something and then push it under the rug. You investigate, reveal the information, take action, and then take preventive measures from that for that not to happen again. Those are some of the things that needs to happen. So I'll stop here and give you a chance to talk, but there's a lot more that we could have benefited from the information bill.
Thank you, Sam. Well, just to add to the point, because you already hit key points that are important. The fact that this bill is passed, I think that is a great thing. I don't know who should be commended for that, but having this Freedom of Information bill is a very good thing. It's a step forward. So I'm very much grateful about that. Now, having something in place and having it work the way it's supposed to is different. You can have the whole information about everything, but if the right approach is not done, or if the consequence is not been applied, then there's a problem. We have seen a lot of investigation that has taken place with Janet Commission, with the TRRC and other things. And with Janet Commission, yet still it hasn't been effectively implemented. So you can have this Freedom of Information bill and have access for government officials to provide information about anything that is suspicious or that requires investigation. But how accurate are we going to have this information? How would the compliance be? Are they going to comply? Are they going to give us all the information? Are they going to give the media what is needed to come out? Like you graciously mentioned with the diplomatic issue, the diplomatic passport issue, and the fertilizer. I've had, the president himself say that the family members, our family members are the ones who are selling these fertilizers at a very low cost to neighboring countries. So the fact of the matter is, when the information comes out and a right judgment had been made, there should be a punishable consequence about that. You shouldn't just leave postings under the rug for political gain. I think our problem is implementation. We can have the information, we can have the resources, but we are not implementing them. If you are not executing things, it's just gonna fall in the cracks. That is just what is our issue here. I think we are good at identifying things, perhaps if we want to, but our leadership is not really taking accountability. They don't want to be responsible. And you cannot please everyone. I always say this. If you want to lead people, some people will not like you. But that's the name of the game. You have to look at what is good for the common good of the people. Okay, that's what it's democracy, because democracy means it has to be majority. So once you know that, you take your steps. But if you want to please everyone, then you cannot effectively lead. So I think Freedom of Information bill It's a great idea to reveal a lot of things that are usually goes under the rock and bring accountability to our leaders and people at, our civil servants who are working under the government. But at the same time, just having the information and knowing what is happening is not sufficient enough. If there's any wrongdoing, if there's anything happening, it needs to be, bring justice, and then it needs to be punishable so that it can deter future problems and future conflicts. So I think that is the area that I want to add to this. But this is what I want to say. You mentioned about the minister complaining and the president complaining about those fertilizers, the minister complaining about people's name being appearing on COVID fund duplicates. They have the power. They are leaders. They have the power to fire these people. If the Ministry of Health cannot fire those folks who are responsible, who are doing those wrongdoing, it's God's code. So having to complain, we don't want to hear that. We want to say, these are the so and so being fired because of this and this. So that will deter Mr. X and Y to do the same thing. So I think it's too much complaining. I think that is like a way to bring sympathy to them or to their role, but it's not really helping us as a country. It's not. So I also want to say, corruption, which is the big elephant in the house here when you talk about this. Corruption itself, I think corruption need to be punishable. This is something that they need to enforce in the National Assembly, because if you see all these things going, this information hiding, this not being transparent or accountable, it all comes down to corruption. Corruption is the key thing that causes that. If corruption is minimized, I'm telling you, everything will be coming to light. People are, corruption comes in all forms and shapes. It's not only monetary corruption. It could be beneficial. It could be family benefits. It could be anything, like the diplomatic passport case. That's corruption. We have seen that, people who have held the passports were not actually entitled to. So anytime something is not done the right way, you cut the corners, or you go in front of the line, it's corruption. Yeah, so we need to really work on those in order to actually, make this kind of thing, information, freedom of information bill and other things that we can go and get to the bottom of issues to make it work for us. We need to have a commander-in-chief who can hold people accountable, punish them when they need to be. Yeah, so this is what I want to add to your point. But I have Mfamara join now. Perhaps he can come in. Mfamara, welcome.
Thank you so much, Sawane.
Welcome, Mfamara.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you so much, Sam.
Yeah.
Very important discussion today. Freedom of information is very important. Information is power. When you have the correct information, or even if you have half of information, it helps the government or the public or even the civil society organization or even the journalists, to pick up the truth out of the information you got, no matter how small it is. That's why information is very, very powerful. So it's so important because the reason why we make laws is to enforce the laws. There is no point in making laws if we cannot enforce them. And any information that comes to the government's table regarding a policy that they already put in place, either to protect the interests of the government or the interests of the public, when anything goes contrary to that and they have some bit of information, it is the responsibility of the government to investigate. And those information, whether it is something that is reliable or not, and if not, whatever information they find out, they should get back to the citizenry and to tell them this is what they know so far, so that people can be informed about what they had, because that's very important, because the citizens need to have a trust in the government or in the public institution that they put in place, because those are the institutions that are representing the voice of the country, the citizens of the country. So when a particular ministry is implicated into a bribery scandal, for example, or maybe a breach of contract, or maybe they did something that is contrary to the laws of that institution, then obviously if the public knew about those information and they challenge that particular ministry or institution, the institution should be able to come out and then establish whether that information is fact or not, and then give information to the public the way it should. That's the way to build confidence and trust in the minds of people that you serve. And like Sawana said, and this is what we have been seeing a lot of time happening in our government. You guys mentioned very well about the fertilizer scandals, and then also taking an example about the fisheries case that is happening right now, where the PS is actually sent to mile 2. But in that audio that we had from the PS of fisheries, for example, we already had that he was talking to the minister, saying that this guy gave me money, and then, how much money was involved into that. So I believe the minister should not be spared. It's not only about the permanent secretary. Of course, the money was given to him, and then the bribery scandal came to his side. But I think the minister needs to be investigated very well to establish the truth as well. And as much as the fertilizer scandal it is, and the president himself confessed it at a public gathering that his government has provided enough fertilizers, but because some people end up selling that fertilizer to outside the country, I think that's something that shouldn't be left like that. That should be investigated. If I was the IGP, and then hearing the president saying that, with or without directive from the office of the president, I will institute an investigation to establish the fact. Because when the issue came out, we had a press release from the Ministry of Agriculture, trying to say what the information going out in the public is not what actually happened. So they try to defend. But if the president coming out saying he has provided more fertilizers, but because people are, selling those fertilizers, that's why it's becoming sorted. And I think that issue should not be left or put under the carpet like that. It should be investigated. And we deserve to know what the truth is, because our farmers are struggling every year to get access to fertilizers. And then our national, crop production, is falling every year because a lot of different factors, environmental factors are involved because not too much rains, but also, our land, the land also is becoming an issue especially in the greater Banjul areas. So most of the farmers in the rural areas, yes, they have plenty of land, but the environment is not conducive for them to, engage on a proper farming that will produce crops that will be able to feed our nation. So these are some of the things that the government needs to investigate fully, because we are putting so much, money into agriculture. We need to see that those monies are being spent the way they are supposed to be spent, so that the country can benefit, and then those farmers also, their livelihoods and lives can also improve. Without that, the corruption will continue, because agriculture is one of those institutions that are benefiting a lot of grants, from FAO and this other international donors. So we need to know where those monies are spent, so that's very important. So coming again to Freedom of Information Act. So yes, now the government has passed that bill, and it's now a law now. Now the thing is, when people go out to bring out information, how prepared as an institution, as a government, to go after those information to make sure that they are true. These are things that we need to do. And this is not only the effort or the role of the government, but also even the civil society organization, the publics, even in our communities. When information come out, we need to ensure that those informations are investigated and the facts are shared out of that. But there are a lot of investigation going on in the Gambia, and still we don't know those reports, whether they have even come out or not, and whether the government is taking a step, to address those reports. And without proper action, when people fail to do something wrong, the institution and the heads have to be held accountable. And if that means losing their job or being sent to jail, so that those institutions can be corrected and deter other people who are going to do similar things in the future, so be it. But the laws needs to be enforced. And that's our biggest challenge, Sawani and Sam, in the Gambia right now. We are very good in making laws, but we are not very good in enforcing laws. And there is no point in making laws if we cannot enforce them.
Wonderful. Yeah, I think we are all speaking the same language here. Enforcement. I mean, we have idealists, but we don't have enforcers in our civil service and of course in our leadership. Sam want to say something.
Yeah, that and that's
Thank you,
where we
Favara.
come to. That's where we come to leadership. Just like I said earlier, and how I started before Famara joined. If you think about freedom of information is very important, very, very important, and we should have investigative journalists that are also out there that are following all of these up to be able to bring the truth to the people and reveal information to people, because when they go to the government officials, they need to be able to have access to that information and even evidence. They can ask for evidence because that's the information they need to be able to report the truth. Starting with, just like I said earlier, that 33 or 35 million that went into the First Lady's account. Then you think about the diplomatic passport scandal. Then you go from there, you go to the Minister of Health that stood in front of the National Assembly and confessed that there were people in his department that were forging numbers or names to be able to get funds. This is all part of corruption. Then you come to the fertilizer stuff. And then there's a forestry. Not forestry, but ministry. That could be something going on in forestry too. Yes, forestry with all the logs that are being transported to China. Why is all this happening? And they are killing our trees, and we need our trees. All right. So you think about Ministry of Fisheries. There was one investigative journalist that really went and talked to, I think, the permanent secretary or somebody.
Yes, I remember that. Yeah,
that also was revealed. That was another investigation that was revealed. But at the end of the day, yes, information bill is crucial, very important, is of paramount importance. People need to know that. But like I said earlier, if we don't have the leaders that are going to hold these people accountable, then it's going to be very difficult. And the only way forward and to be able to correct that and have the solution for this kind of problem is to change the leader. Anywhere that you have leadership. If I look at Minister of Health, I mean, I've said this before, nothing against the Minister of Health. I think when he was a doctor in the hospital, he was great. People said a lot of commendable things about him. When he became minister, he does not have management and leadership skills. No good management and leadership skills, because as a good leader, you see people doing that kind of thing in your own department, and you didn't take any action, but other than go to stand in front of a National Assembly to say it there. I mean, I can see the frustration in him, but he should have taken some actions prior to going to the National Assembly. This is the same thing that should happen in any of those departments. And in fact, starting with the president himself. The moment he knew there was a diplomatic passport scandal, the president should put his foot down and say, I want this investigated. I want to know who's involved. I want to get them all fired if they did or anything that is against the code of conduct. They all need to be fired first because of a wrongdoing. And second, I want them investigated, arrest them, take them to police for investigation, and then prosecute them and make sure that the law prevails, make sure that the right thing happens to those people. That is what a good leader does. That's good leadership. You take action and stop stuff. If you can't do that, guess what? People are going to change you. People are not going to vote for you to stay there. And Gambia, we should go in that direction. Anytime we have a leader that doesn't take action to correct situations, that leader need to go. Whether he's a president or a minister, and even a National Assembly member that does not fight for their people, that does not follow the truth and do the right thing, and also hold the executive branch accountable. Those National Assembly members, next year election, we shouldn't vote for them to come back. They are just wasting our time there and our money. They need to go. We need to find the right people that are going to do the right thing so that they can hold the president accountable and the president can hold his people accountable. And this is what's going to try to help. This will help kill corruption. I know corruption is a big topic. It's a big topic. And there's a lot that need to be done. But for corruption to die in Gambia, we've got to have someone that knows about loss prevention. How do you prevent things from happening? What kind of strategies, technology, and initiatives that you can put in place to stop certain things, to close all the loopholes that people steal with by getting cash out of people's hands, and don't give access to people for funds that they shouldn't have access to, but also have a delegation of authority, what people can do and what they cannot do. And if they bypass that, well, one, you'll have policies and procedures and steps in place that will prevent them from bypassing that. Once you do that, they can't go past, and that's it. You know, it's a lot of things to talk about corruption, but I won't get into that. I just want to say at the end of the day, the information bill is very important. Gambians need to know the truth about everything that happened that becomes a rumor or that became a rumor at one point. And because we know that where there's smoke, there's fire. So those investigative journalists need to be able to go out there and have access to that information, reveal the truth. National Assembly need to step up and say what happened. They want to hold accountable, the executive accountable, and say and demand answers. Tell and have the executive explain what happened, investigate, or they can launch their own investigation. Just like I said earlier, in the United States, Congress can launch investigations. They need to be able to launch their own investigations, completely forget the president and the executive team, launch your investigation and find the truth. If the truth comes out and you see that the head of the executive is involved, impeach him and get him out. Just that easy. We need to find the truth. We need to follow the right thing for this country to be. I mean, there's so much money that's been wasted in Gambia that today Gambia could have been a gold mine in Africa, in that sub-West African region there. We could be a place where other countries, neighboring countries will look at us as being a small country. We should have been very well developed, but we're not. We're not there. We're not even close to some of them, because every money or all the funds that come into our country, we have certain individuals, not everybody, but we have certain individuals that want to chop something out of it. They want to get something out of that money, which don't belong to them. And that's conflict of interest. And conflict of interest, that could be illegal, and that should require prosecution and jail time for people. Yep.
Excellent, excellent. All right. So I have a few questions that I'm gonna ask. Famara. Yeah, before our guest come in, he said in few minutes he's gonna come in. Mr.
Okay.
Krubally. Yes. So let's say, there is something to investigate.
Mm-hmm.
We are given, we go to this particular office or this particular area, and then the leaders are involved in this. Information wise, how could we get, the kind of information that the media needs, or how could we make sure that the compliance to getting this information, the right information, be given? And I'll give you an example of the KMC issue.
Mm-hmm.
The investigation that was going on there.
Right.
Yeah, so that's a prime example. So in this kind of situation, how do we, there's a bill that has been passed. The government officials or the civil servants need to comply to this. But how are we sure that they are giving us the right information? They can give us half of that information. They can give us and then some that don't pertain to them or that involves them if they are implicated in that particular issue. So the question is, how do you make them how do you make sure that this information is correct, so to speak?
Yeah, there's always two sides to information. So you try to hear from both sides, and thank God, recently I've seen many government institutions, they have their own media and communication unit, or maybe PRO or director of press or whatever they call them. So I think the best idea is when you find out information from the public against an institution, I think the best to do is to contact those press officers that we had some certain information that directly implicated your institution, and I'm a journalist or I'm just even a citizen, want to find out whether this information is true or not. So sometimes those information officers are not even aware at the executive level what some of those informations are against their institution. So they may or they might not know what really happened, but I think that will be the point of entry, to contact them first and see if they're aware. And if they come back to you, most of the time they will give you, well, give me time, let me investigate, talk to my boss and find out. And sometimes it takes a couple of days before they come back to you. So, but the best of the thing is to contact them. And if they come back to you, fine. If they don't come back to you in a quicker way, the way you expected, then make a visit there yourself. And then maybe write and then an official request to have an audience with the entire, or the executive director to verify the situation. And this could include having a joint press conference together, or have a meeting in their whatever boardroom, whatever it is, and then get all the information and then compare from what you had and what they're telling you, whether it's something true or not. So with that gathering, you'll be able to establish whether something, you'll have an idea whether what you got is the right information or not. And if it is something very serious crime, and then it's a government institution, then obviously the IGP or the police needs to get involved, and so that they can put pressure on that government institution to tell them the right information, because they have the expertise in terms of investigation to know the truth out of that information we got. So I think that's one of the ways we can get information from government institutions, and then see whether the information we got out is right or wrong. Yeah.
Okay, that is commendable. That point is commendable. Do you have anything, Sam, to add to that? Or
yep, what Farmer said is right. That's the one route that could be taken for sure. And another one is, just like I said, National Assembly, just like Congress in the United States, can launch their own investigation. And there should be those independent investigators that can launch, that can be put into action to investigate. That way, you're not having someone within the organization investigating themselves, because they may not give you all the information. If something happened in Ministry of Justice, as an example, and you want somebody from Ministry of Justice to investigate that, and someone that also has hands in it or had hands in it, guess what? You're not going to get the full story. You're not going to get the full story. They will give you something, but you won't get the full story. But if a National Assembly has a commission and get up and launch an investigation, and they will go into it and let them know, we are the lawmakers. We want the truth here. Not only what you're going to tell us, we want the evidence. Give me the papers. I need the papers. If you don't give me the papers, we're going to take you to court. We're going to say, not necessarily take you to court, but we're going to say this is obstruction of justice, is tampering with evidence. You have the evidence, you refuse to give it to us. There are violations that could be called for this, numerous violations that could be called for that. And that person could be summoned to sit in front of the National Assembly to explain what happened, after providing all the information they give the National Assembly for them to read ahead of time. And they can put it in front of people, and it can be on television for people to see what happened. But National Assembly should be an independent body that should be able to investigate the executive branch. We should not have the executive branch. Yes, the executive branch can launch their own investigation, but there are certain things that happen under their own watch. You should not let them investigate that themselves, because you will not get all the truth and all the facts. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, very good point. Another question before our guests come in would be the whistleblowers. In any of these cases, sometimes we get information that something is happening in a particular department, a particular area, a particular department, or particular, sector, because of the whistleblowers. Somebody who is inside would come out and say something. So I haven't seen this bill, and I'm not sure how these people are protected, but whistleblowers should be empowered, because it's through them that sometimes we know things are not going right, or this is happening. Somebody must speak out who is inside the game. Yeah.
Yes. In the United States here, there is a law that protects the whistleblowers from retaliation. And retaliation is illegal in the United States. It's against the law. So if somebody comes and blow the whistle to tell you what is happening in a place, you cannot fire them. You cannot suspend them. You can't cut their pay. You cannot transfer them. You cannot do anything to them. You need to investigate and come and find the truth. That's it. Whistleblowers are protected. So whistleblowers, there should be a law that should protect them if there's not already. I haven't looked into that part of the Constitution, but there should be a law that, of course, protect whistleblowers. But there's just also, I believe there's already a law about harassment, of course, and retaliation and things like that. That's the start. A good start is the National Assembly to have those laws to make sure that they revisit them if we have them. They need to revisit them and make them even stronger and stringent so that the whistleblowers are protected. This is what's going to encourage people to come out and say what is happening and reveal or make some revelations to people for it to be investigated. And once investigated, people will know the truth. I don't think anybody's going to put their name on the line and just make up a story and just go tell a story that's completely false, because that will be, if they find out that what you said is not true, well, you can potentially put yourself in at risk. You could be fired for lying, you know? So whistleblowers need to be protected so we can encourage that in every department. That's what needs to happen.
Okay. Yeah. So Famara, do you, any other thoughts on this area?
Yeah, I think Sam said about the whistleblowers, they need to be protected, definitely. Some of them don't mind to be exposed where they got the information from, but if the information is provided to the government institution or the police, those whistleblowers should be protected by all means, obviously, because some of the information some of them are actually within the institutions that might be doing or alleged to have done something wrong. So obviously those people need to be protected because maybe they are just citizens and then they are very concerned and what they see, they think is very wrong and they cannot just keep quiet, or sit on that information. So they feel obliged to come out and inform the right authority about the information so that the government can continue and do their job and investigate that matter and then come out the information to the general public. So obviously those people need to be protected at all costs, definitely. So I'm sure I've not read the bill myself. I hope that should be included. That should be a clause in that bill to protect those kind of information, because sometimes journalists depend on the people. They depend on civil society organizations. They depend on intelligence to back up their story. So if people go to that length of providing accurate information, even backed by some evidences, so those evidences, the sources of those evidences must be protected, and those people need to be protected as well. So I completely agree with Sam. Thank you.
Okay. So what about this particular area, relationship with media? Remember, like during Jammeh's time, media was restricted. Is this a plus for media? Is this gonna open more doors for media empowerment, people having freedom of speech, as long as it's within the limits? Is this a win for media in terms of, getting to really serve the public by, telling what is happening and sensitizing our populace about, what direction we're taking and bringing transparency? Is this a big win for media? And if so, what do you think is the next step that the media the media would gain from? Maybe there are other areas that haven't yet been lifted. They are still being restricted. What do you think? Which area do you think is going to be another win for media?
Yeah, certainly. This is a big plus for the media fraternity because this is something they've been fighting the last 22 years. They couldn't get it because we have seen a number of journalists being arrested for only writing on information that was against the previous administration. So the journalists have gone through a lot in our country. So information was something that was not forthcoming. So even if you write something about the government, you are not even sure whether you will be picked up that moment or a day or two, or whether the organization you work with will be closed down. And this is an evidence of we have seen a lot of that. Our current Minister of Information, Ibrahim Silla, have gone through a lot on that aspect. I mean, he's a friend of mine, and we were all classmates at the primary school in Beaufort. We all passed the common entrance the same year. So I've known him personally. So obviously, he has gone through a lot. So those are one example. And a lot of journalists who left the country, went to Senegal or other parts of the world, they have gone through a lot, and this was something that was not existing, So even coming up with a mere story on a paper, you find the national intelligence officers coming to investigate what you wrote about, whether it is how did you get that information, or even maybe a freedom newspaper will write something about the Gambia, even though the paper is based in the United States. But so long as they wrote something about the government, they always want to find out. Sometimes they will directly or indirectly implicate people who are not even linked to that story. So you see, so they always want to find out where that information is coming from, who is supplying the information, whether it's internally that institution or not. But they'd always go, and people get into trouble. If they can't find the journal itself, your family will be in trouble. They probably go after your father or your mother, say your son wrote this, he's in the problem, you bring him out or we will arrest you. We have seen all of that happening. People have been tortured, illegally detained, beyond the 72 hours, period that they're supposed to be there, and then they never come out, So these are some of the things very important. And then I'll give an example. I'm when I was in the Gambia, I'm a kind of like a freelance journalist. I like articles every Thursday on the Gambia Daily Observer on focus on wildlife, back in the days. And when I started also with the National Environment Agency, at some point we got arrested, and then detained for 3 days. And because I stopped Jammeh's truck from illegal sand mining on the beach, which is obviously in contrary to our laws of the Gambia, because it doesn't matter whether you're president or not. Wherever they say there is no mining happening here, nobody should mine there. So we had that courage to stop Jammeh and his people and their trucks, and we even went to the extent to go to the KGI, which was his business, and then interview those people and then say, what you guys are doing here is wrong. You should stop it. It is completely wrong. And we don't care whether this trucks belongs to the president or not, but what you're doing is against the law. And then the law must be enforced. And this was something I was very passionate about, because when I'm doing my job as a public servant, I don't look into the eyes of anybody. I just do what the law says. And then we did that. And then we had a meeting with the representative of the KGI, told them this is what you did. It is wrong and it must be stopped. But of course, because Jammeh's name was mentioned in that, either those institutions were afraid, they don't want Jammeh to know what they were doing, or maybe they're afraid we might report the matter to our ministry and it might go up and they will get in trouble. So what they had to do was to inform the intelligence office to come and interview us and then, ask us to report and then give us our statement. But instead of writing what we're doing, what we arrested them for, they twisted the information. They say when we went out there, to stop the people from mining, we're trying to create a commotion there with the staff of KGI, which never happened. So you see those kind of information. And then a day or two, I think Freedom newspaper picked up that information and then they wrote it on their paper. But while in the Gambia, we had that, environmentalists were arrested and their NEA. So now they have to shift the blame. I don't know how Panderi got that information. I don't know who provided the information to him, but the information went out there, and the institution that we work for and some people that they think they were kind of questioning, what was going on. And thank God there was one Peace Corps volunteer among us. And then obviously American embassy was involved. They never allowed that guy to be questioned or to be detained at the NIA. But we, the public service, were detained for 3 days and we were released, at the end anyway. But I feel we should not be doing what we are doing as a public servants. And then we got into trouble for that. And yet the American embassy did not allow the American citizen to be detained. And then the ambassador himself will drive the guy up to the intelligence office. After the interrogation, they'll put him back into the American vehicle and then take him back to his residence. So you see how the Americans were protecting their citizens. But for us working for the government, we were not even safe, even though we were doing our job. So these are some of the direct information that we went through in our country. And I think this Freedom of Information Act will help a lot in breaking that barrier. And thank God, since the coalition government into play, I think one of the institutions that is improving a lot today, I can say, is the media. Because we have seen a lot of online radios that came in. We have seen a lot of radio station TVs, they are coming in. So if there is any improvement that the government or this coalition government have done, I would give them a thumbs up for the information and then the right for the journalists to go and do their job. And a lot of journalists now, whatever you do is in the next minute is on the newspaper. Of course, some investigative journalism is still lacking a little bit, but now the freedom of information and the right for the journalists to do their job, I can say has improved a lot compared to the last 22 years.
Thank you. Thank you. With that note, thank you, Famara. Do you want to say something, Sam, before we introduce our guest?
No, I want to commend Famara for what he said. Sure. Thank you for all of that information. And
those stories.
I noticed that our guest is here now. So I'm going to stop here and allow the guest to be introduced so we can get going.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Sam. And thank you, Famara. Welcome, my senior, Mr. Krubally at Hermitage High School.
Good morning.
Morning. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's a little chilly in Los Angeles, but I guess it's Sunday, so it's a good day to relax around the house.
Yes. I thought you were in Seattle. I kind of confused it, I was telling them you were in Seattle, but it's the same time zone, right?
That is correct, yes.
Welcome. So let me introduce Famara and Sam can introduce themselves quickly.
Good.
Yes. And you can introduce yourself last, I believe. Yeah.
Perfect.
Thank you, Mr. Krubally. Good to have you here. My name is Famara Drame. I'm from Brufut originally, but currently in the United States in Maryland. I've been here for the last 7 years, but I used to work in the Gambia government before for 20 years. Work at the institutions like Department of Parks and Wildlife Management and the National Environment Agency. So I'm very much particular about environmental issues and community development. So I'm glad to have you here. I was very excited when I had you coming. So we're all looking forward to a very fruitful discussions with you and on general matters of our country and then other issues as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
Sam, go ahead.
Hello, Mr. Krubally. I'm Sam Cisse, and I'm in Indiana. I live in Indiana, and also the president of the Gambian Association in Indiana. Of course, from Gambia as well. And I don't know what to say here, but I've been on this talk show here with Mr. Swane for a little bit, for a while here. So, but we look forward to you. I want to know a little bit about you and get to, hear what you say today about the topic that we have here. So, yeah, welcome.
And you're also a food safety director, right?
Yes, I am a food safety professional in the United States. I am a certified food safety instructor and a registered food safety examinations proctor as well. So I have a dual role in food safety, and I like to talk about food safety, especially when it comes to Gambia, because in my eyes, there's no food safety in Gambia.
Great. Thank you so much, Mr. Cisse.
Yeah. And then you know me since Hermitage High School. I don't want we've been you were my senior there. So I moved to Sawane, New York. I've been involved in the community organizer, founder of the Gambian Youth Association, and I'm director of African Day Politics. A lot of community work in the Gambian community here, of course. And also, established this New Gambia platform. And I have my team of, panelists here, great guys, intellects, and we also have a WhatsApp forum and so forth. So our goal is to sensitize basically our Gambian folks and globally to issues that matter to our lives. That's the reason of this platform. We are impartial. we could all have our personal preference when it comes to politics and other things, but when we are here, we put on our impartial suits and try to analyze from all angles. So thank you. And then you are such a fruitful citizen. So I think this discussion of our leadership choice in 2022 and who we think will be the right one and why should we make a change. I think this is we can have no better person to discuss this with than you because you passionate about it, I know.
Thank you, Mr. Sone. It's really great to be on your platform. I would first of all like to obviously thank and say good morning to Famara Drame and also Sam Cisse. Now, my only question for Sam is that why does Sam have the San Francisco Bridge in his background if he's Indiana? I think we're going to have to talk about that, Sam.
I like the bridge, so I just picked it up from Zoom as a background and put it on mine. I like it.
Yeah, good. Well, my name is Momodou Krubally, and a lot of people call me MD. I'm originally from Basse, Santa Su. I obviously went to Hermitage High School with Siswane, and I currently live in Los Angeles. I'm a hotelier in professional. That's pretty much what I do for a living to support my life and my family. I live here with my wife and kids, and I'm very passionate about my country. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that I've been one of the fortunate people to leave Africa, Gambia in particular, Basse by extension, to come and enjoy this beautiful life over here that somebody else fought for. And here I am today. Here you are. We're all enjoying it, and it is only right that we also do the same thing for our country. And whichever way we do it, I've done it through the struggle route, and where it was a struggle against the dictatorship. And now I'm doing it through the political route, through the United Democratic Party. We're hoping that, we'll talk a little bit about that here so that people will entrust us with their country and with their lives for us to give them a better option than what we currently have in the country.
Excellent, excellent. So now is your floor because we already exhausted the Freedom of Information bill, and we want to come here and listen to what you has to say. Why do you think we should change this government? And then if we change it, who should be the right folks to entrust our faith with?
Well, that's a very simple question. I mean, if you ask the average Gambian today, how are you doing? How are you living? Is your life better off today than 4 or 5 years ago? Clearly, the answer would be no. The cost of living is skyrocketing. Education is at its worst. Unemployment, one of the highest on the face of this continent. There is no regular electricity, no regular water supply. We have the highest maternity deaths in the country. And we have a very corrupt government, for that matter, a government that is not quite conducive of what's going on in the world. And, it's the average Gambian is suffering today more than ever. And if we're all going to be just very honest, and I understand that there has to be some kind of a, political activism here where people are all coming, partisan and stuff like that. But the fact remains that we're suffering. You're suffering, I'm suffering, because the amount of money that you're sending home today is more than you've ever sent. The value of the dollar is dropping. Cost of living is extremely high. Poverty is very high. Crime is high in that country. There is nothing going on for that country right now other than the fact that we're not at war. Other than that, but we're in a very serious economic war, and that is the war that the United Democratic Party is trying to stop, to let Gambians know that we do have a better choice. And like every other nation, I hope that the Gambians will listen to us, that the life that they're living right now, there's a better option. You don't have to live the way that you're living. You know that, I know that, and everybody else knows that. Now it is our responsibility to educate them and let them understand that there's options out there, because many of them don't really know, any better. And some of them haven't traveled. The only reason why I'm very passionate, you're very passionate, is the fact that we have seen something else better than where we're from. And we're not telling them that the way the world is set up today, that we can definitely, we do have the talented Gambians, the capable Gambians, the people that really care, not trying to get in there to enrich themselves, but to work so that we can also leave a legacy in our country to say that, yes, it was during our time that the cost of living has dropped. Today in the household, the average Gambian doesn't receive more than $10,000 a year. Cost of bag of rice is $1,600. Sugar, the same thing. By the time you get your cash power, by the time you get water. So this is why corruption is also very high. And of course, we have seen the head of state is one of the most corrupt people in less than 4 years. This person has built one of the biggest mansions, hospitals, police stations at his location. So we're trying to say that the way things are going in the country, it's not the right way. We have to change it and do Gambians to have an option. And that option is the United Democratic Party. We do have one of the most resilient, most qualified Gambians that ever lived in that country. Surrounded by some of the most qualified people, men, women, young and old, that are ready, that have proven themselves, and that have shown that they don't have any desire to come and be corrupt any further because they have a very good life and their track record shows that.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. I have questions, but I would like my co-panelists to comment if they have any question or they have any comments before we move forward.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Farmer.
MB. Yeah, I'll start. Thank you, MB. I don't know you personally, but I've been following you on Facebook a lot. And then one thing I wanted to start with is basically
you've been following him on Facebook, going after Barrow.
Yeah, actually, not only on political issues, but also on the Gambian as well. And because I know he's behind the Gambian Democratic Fund, that mobilized a lot of funds to help the coalition government in 2016. So I just want to say, and I'm glad to know that Sam is also the president of which association? The Gambian Association in where?
In Indiana.
Indiana. Okay,
yeah.
Good. So now with all this Gambian association in New York, Indiana, maybe in Seattle, Maryland, how do we come together? I know, MB has a great role here to play because he's part of that Democratic Fund, to mobilize a lot of funds to help the coalition government. MB, I just want to start with, do we have an umbrella organization that represent all Gambian organizations in the United States or even in the diaspora? Do we have an umbrella organization? Because this is very important because we have a lot of talents and skills in the diaspora. And I feel our contribution towards the development of the Gambia, needs to be well coordinated and, so that our voice can be heard, And then taking an example in this election process where a diaspora was promised that we were going to vote and the last minute, nothing happened. And then we are kind of marginalized as citizens of the Gambia, living abroad. Our voices are not being taken into consideration now. But, of course, the Gambia cannot go without us because we are contributing a lot to the GDP of the economy. And then, of course, any other issues that come even on political fund and political parties. I will tell you the majority of the funds that helps in political parties on the ground is coming from diaspora, but yet we are still marginalized. MB, to start with, is there any effort to have one umbrella organization in the diaspora so that irrespective of wherever political, irrespective of our political affiliation, is any effort going on right now?
Well, Mr. Driver, that's a very important question and a very good one indeed. No, we don't have an umbrella organization, and if anybody try to represent any organization, you're doing it just fooling yourself. We're not that coordinated. We don't have the same agenda anymore. We used to have the same agenda, that is the fight against the struggle, and that is why GDF came about and almost became the body that everybody looked at. But currently we don't have it, and that's for two reasons. One of it is there's no political will for the government to do that because they're scared of the diaspora. So they will do everything to stop that. Of recently, we've seen about almost two days ago, they've started what you call the diaspora organization or whatever to try to entice us to vote for them. That was 5 years into their leadership that they started doing that. But even for us too, your agenda in wherever you are, in Maryland, and the same thing for Sam in Indiana and myself over here, it's totally different. One thing we have in common is the Gambia. And I think to try and get an umbrella organization, it's not going to work. How do you pick the officials? Virtually, it'd be very hard to do something like that, just off the bat. I think what we need to take a look at is, first of all, is to have a government that really respects the diaspora, that understands the value of the diaspora, and that is willing to engage the diaspora. Because when this government came in, they call us the 8th region. We don't want to be the 8th region. We don't want to be a section of the government. I am a part of the URR region. You are a part of wherever you're from in Gambia. Instead of trying to put us in a corner, don't treat us any different. Treat us as simple Gambians that are in the diaspora, but are from different regions in that country. And I think the answer to your question is very simple. Right now, there was a good opportunity for this government to really help Gambians, not to build an umbrella organization, but to help us in a sense to give us our rights. And that is not what's not happening. And right now, like I said, some people are here just for economic reasons. Others are here for political reasons. So some people are here, they're just here for their family. They're busy just focusing on their family. So our reasons of living in the diaspora is so different that it will be hard to have one group in Maryland trying to dictate what's happening in the entire United States of America or in Germany or somewhere else. I think what's better off is for the government to come in and strengthen these organizations, work with these organizations, put in the necessary networks that are there so that when Gambians need help, so that when Gambians really are able to serve, that it is really easy. But right now, what we have is every effort that they do, they try to put us in the diaspora as a different section. We're no different Gambians than the person that is sitting in Basse today or the person that is sitting in Baribu today. We just happen to live there to come here for greener pasture. And some people are still on the political asylum. At the end of the day, that is basically what it is. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. Sam, you have something for Mr. Krubally?
Yeah, I really don't have a question at this time, but I do want to say that first of all, I guess we have something in common because if I remember correctly, you said you in the hotel industry. Is that right? Did you say that?
Yes.
Yeah. That's where I started. I was once a hotel manager for Ramada Hotel in Columbus, Ohio. That's where I started actually in the hotel industry. But good to know that. So anyway, so what I wanted to say here is it is definitely true to look at Gambia as Gambians and see what's best for our country. I am a strong supporter of changing the government and any government that is not functioning. In other words, we've passed those days. Gambia is a very small and a very poor country, should be one of the easiest countries to develop in Africa there because of the size there. And unfortunately, we had leaders up to now. We've had leaders that really ruin our country by embezzling our funds and misappropriation of funds and things like that, and which brought us where we are. We should have passed this level. So it is, to me, it's very crucial that when we have any government that sits in there, people need to look at it this way. We give them one term and see what they're going to do. If they do the right things by putting the country first and fighting against corruption and leading by example, doing the right thing, to halve the cost of living in the Gambia, the unemployment rate, the healthcare section, looking at the healthcare and looking at education and agriculture and all of these things, things that we really need to focus on to move our country forward. This is what we want to see. A government comes in and take care of these and start working on this, developing our country for the next government or until the next time. So in my mind, if I see any government that comes in, like right now, the government we have in place is really not doing what it's supposed to do for our country. And not only that, but they're not prioritizing what's more important than the other. You look at the condition of our hospitals. They're in very serious and critical conditions where we take people to really seek for help, to get medical care. And if any government cannot prioritize that and spend money on that, instead, you go out in the middle of the country to build roads. Roads are important, don't get me wrong. I want roads built. They're part of the infrastructure. But for me, if I have to build a road compared to look at what is happening at the RVTH in Gambia, I'm going to give that hospital the priority before I build the road. I'm going to build that hospital. I'm going to do something about the hospital first. than building a road. So these are the kind of mindset that we need to bring. And I like to see a government that will do that. If they don't, I'm always going to say that people need to vote and get them out. Vote for someone else. Let's give somebody a chance, an opportunity to come in and make a change, to change people's lives. So I'm on the same course. I totally agree with you on what you said. So I'm going to stop here for now. And
Mr. Cisse, just to chime in into what you just said, if I may, why build roads? It's the easiest thing to do, especially when you have a foreign government that is willing to come and test their technology. But see, African governments are very good at doing this. They come, they build big roads, big buildings that we can see. But average person is not. They can't do anything. They're not willing to do. Because see, what happens when you develop a human being is they don't become dependent of you anymore. They become independent. And this is what our leaders are very scared of. And this is why they continue on building those big roads, those white elephant projects that we call them. But at the end of the day, they're not willing to sit and say, how do we bring the cost of living? How do we better the education? How do we better healthcare? How do we stop maternal deaths? Because that is what true development is. The reason why you're developed today is because you can sit over there and do business with me. Then we can talk about something more important of a virtual, doing something virtual. But we can't do that if you cannot afford your living, if you don't have any electricity. So that's basically it. And everything that you've said here, you will see it in the United Democratic Party. And that is why I'm here. Because, let's begin with our leadership. If you look at, Elijah Dabo, he has been one of the most successful Gambians education-wise, defended human rights in our country as we know it today. Stood up when the dictatorship really needed him. But this guy still lives the average humble life like you do. He still lives in the homes that he has built, even when he was vice president. Never been caught in any corruption scandal, and have shown that he's not willing to go to bed with even one of the most richest presidents just to be bribed for a position or with some money. So at the end of the day, this is some of the things. See, what we're trying to do here is all the signs are there. And you said something very, very important, and everybody that's listening to that will need to think about this very seriously. We've given Adama Barrow 5 years into office. Our country is worst off today. Gambians are very unhappy. It shows by the crowds that the oppositions are pulling. We need to change him. Leaving Adama Barrow over there is continuing the incompetency that is in the country. But most dangerous, it is sending the wrong message to the future leaders to say that if you come in, you don't have to work hard. All you have to do is buy the votes of the people, deceive the people, stay corrupt, buy voters, and development will never come. And we cannot continue to live like this. What Gambians need to understand is today, the reason why the diaspora is doing so well, we're sending so much money back home, is because you and I still have a connection there. Your child, my child, and many other people's kids don't have the connection that we have over there. So it is just a matter of time before that connection that is there between the diaspora and the Gambian, it is shrinking right now. Those of us that are here right now are peaking. We're the last generation of Gambians that have come to the United States. You're seeing second, third, fourth generation Gambians that don't have anything to do with our country. And pretty soon all that money flowing in is going to get diminished. And we will continue to rely more on foreign aid. And if you rely more on foreign aid, that means, guess what? They're going to come deplete your resources and your people are going to continue. These foreign governments will not come and teach you how to create jobs. They will not come and teach you how to develop your raw materials. They will not come and build hospitals and build a structure in there and a system that will support itself. What they're going to do is give you 50 million, 20 million, 100 million for you to pay salaries so that you can stay peaceful, for you to be able to go build a bridge. That bridge that we built in Basse, that was the Chinese way of checking their technology. Obviously, they wanted to do something. They're also out there trying to find raw materials, trying to find a nation that they can get stuff of. It was not free. It was something that we paid for. So this is what Gambians need to understand, is that we need a government that is going to be able to sit at a table and do what you do. Food safety is very important. Some of the deaths in our country is due to the lack of safety with our food. How do we maintain it? How do you maintain food and medication if you don't have electricity? How do you maintain teachers, education, and medical facilities if you don't have good doctors? This is some of the things that we need to take a look at and understand that bridge sitting at Basse, it's great. It's a bridge that's sitting at Basse. But when you drive over that bridge from Woodley, you come to Basse, you cannot afford a bag of rice. You go to the hospital, there's no medication, there's no blood, there's no electricity. So what is the essence of these bridges? I'm going to close by saying there's always what you say when you buy a house. You look at the house, you say, when I buy this house, this is what I'm going to do. You have all these great ideas that you're going to do. But once you buy the house and you get into it, then you start prioritizing. And that is what this government is failing to do. They got in there, and the first thing Adama Barrow did was to electrify his village in the middle of nowhere, build mansions over there, start ordering cars whilst our people are poor. And this is why I'm saying that it is time for change, and Gambians will agree with me that their lives have not been better the last 5 years. It is time for change. And if we change, we will send a very strong message, and that is, if you come and you don't do your job, we're going to go ahead and change you. And then leaders will really start working for the Gambian people. So you were very right when you say that, this government is very incompetent. It needs to be changed.
Yeah, thank you. You asked, okay. So I think now my guns are loaded fully from the feedbacks I get from you guys. So if you don't have anything else, I'll comment. Sam and I usually come from another angle, Sam and Mfamara, because I was prepared for Mr. Krubally today. Sam and Mfamara, you have anything else, or I can comment?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So senior man, I will start with this. You are part of the struggle. I mean, I think one of the known folks who really fight Jammeh for change.
Yeah.
And you are also with United Democratic Party.
Yeah.
I think about you joined them like 2 years ago. I can remember. And since then you've been advocating for them and their agenda. And then if you look at Adama Barrow, he was candidate, a flag bearer of United Democratic Party.
Mm-hmm.
And he was installed, and the coalition backed him up through the support of United Democratic Party. Mm-hmm. And they get him to be nominated, and eventually became the flag bearer, and the whole Gambia rallied behind him. And after that happened, the change came. Honorable Hussein Dabo was released as a result of that release from the prison. We found a new Gambia. In fact, this platform was named after that, New Gambia, the concept, and so on and so on. So many things, hopes came. We are all excited. I remember New York here, we organized one of the most successful program, 2017, to celebrate Jammeh's departure. Never ever here before. And at the town hall, which was an event that we host the president. I was the one who organizing that event, spearhead that event. On a meeting with Honorable Hussein Dabo, Alkali Conte, and everyone else. That time, coalition was the name of the game. Mm-hmm. We are all brothers and sisters. I wasn't in any part of this party before, but those times we were all looked as Gambians. We all equally came together and uproot the dictatorship. Even though some of us came in late in the game, but as a result, we all were at the finish line, which is what is most important here. So, good feeling, great things happen. And we did the town hall meeting here. I don't know if you came, but most people came from all over the world, all over the North America to make this historical moment. Now, there, United Democratic was still spoken of. I was the first 10 Gambians to meet Barrow and then Honorable Hussein Dabo and Tambedu and all other things. I remember in the hotel when Al-Khalid mentioned UDP, Honorable Hussein Dabo told him that no, we are not here as UDPs, we are here as coalition. And that shows how authentic the man is and how fair he is. So there's no doubt in terms of his capabilities and his willingness to stand for the cause of the Gambia. Now, what I want to ask you is that what had happened? Something had happened after that, 2017, that caused us this mess. So, and then that caused us Adama Barrow this way. I think, if we have to put all the pieces and puzzle together, there must be collective responsibility on each part, each member of that coalition and each party that caused us this mess. So first of all, we have to shoulder that responsibility. Now we've seen ourselves in this mess. The 3 years was never materialized as a result. Everybody heads went somewhere, and then Barrow become a loose tiger. Okay, loose tiger, you know how that is. He will bite anybody on the way, do any illegal things on the way as to what he wants. So at this point, definitely we all agree, Amano, he cannot do the job. There's no doubt about that. We all agree. He doesn't have what it takes, and he doesn't have the right people around him. So my question is, are you saying that United Democratic Party is the right party to give us that hope that we all crave for, where the promised land that we want to learn at, being that you have all these other sophisticated politicians? I don't underrate anybody, but I think all of them are sophisticated. All of them has something. Do you think United Democratic Party? And I heard you mention that they have talented folks, educated. But I want to also remind you, it's not like all educated folks can deliver. When it comes to corruption, it doesn't have, it doesn't kind of differentiate whether you are educated or non-educated. When folks are corrupted, when corruption is in place, even somebody, the most educated person, could be subjected to it. So there is usually a saying that, education or experience doesn't translate to results. It depends on integrity and the good willness or the good willness of the individual. So are you saying that United Democratic Party can get us there?
Yes, first of all, quite an extensive question. I almost lost track.
I'm so sorry about that, but that's why I said my God, I'm so loaded that. But you can break them down there.
Let me hit the education part.
Yeah.
The reason why we say education is important is because you go through a disciplinary action from day one until the day you graduate. In the process, you go to college, you have a team of people that you work with, you have deadlines, you have responsibilities, and you go through this process of development. And that is why education is very important. Even in business, you have to have partners. So when we go through an formal education process, that means that we have touched a lot of groups, a lot of people, a lot of different sectors that will discipline us as human beings, that will give us an understanding that you have gone through a process and you understand that everything is a process and it's a teamwork. And that's why when you bring a lot of educated people together, then you have less chances of ineffectiveness. You have more chances of honesty, more chances of people willing to achieve something, because that's what we do when we're educated. We come in as very young people that have no basic understanding of what the world is, and we leave with something, with a prize. So you have something to show for. That's why we get certificates. And this is why when you put educated people together, there is a high degree that there is people there that are willing to be achieved, that are willing to have achievements. Going back to, is the United Democratic Party the party to be trusted? Yes. What happened in 2016 was we had a dictatorship. The dictatorship, we all agreed. It even took us 22 years for us to agree that the dictatorship needs to go. We finally did it, and we succeeded. It was beautiful. You mentioned how Alaji Ousainou Darboe was very focused, saying that this was a coalition. Now, everywhere you go, the Republican Party presented us Donald Trump, and he won. When Donald Trump came in, the Republican Party went behind him and they supported him. Once he started going against their values, they started dropping one by one. They started leaving, the ones that are very good people. This is what the Gambia also went through. We picked Adama Barrow, and gradually we're getting to understand what this guy is, that his agenda is personal, it's not country anymore. And this is why you have decent citizens like Ousainou Darboe that could have easily said, I am the vice president of the Gambia today. I can tell Adama Barrow to give me anything, and chances are he will. I can get anybody a job. I am pretty much, he was being accused of the one that was running the government. So why do you think he's willing to leave all of that behind? It's because of the integrity that he has. So what Gambians need to understand is Adama Barrow is a situation where the United Democratic Party picked him. The reason they picked Adama Barrow and they didn't pick you is because of the brain drain that dictatorship brought. The reason that they didn't pick Mr. Drame is because the dictatorship pushed all the good people out of the country. The ones that are left, he managed to either oppress them or buy them and scare the crap out of them. So the pool got really extremely small of the people that will be picked for the leadership. And this is why Jammeh got so comfortable that when Adama came out of left wing, he couldn't understand and he underestimated him and underestimated the dictatorship. And in the process, he had made a lot of mistakes. So let's not look at Adama Barrow's case and say, well, it's the United Democratic Party's problem. You guys brought this, you guys brought that. Listen, that happened in 2016. This world didn't move forward by a nation who was talking about what happened 5, 10, 15 years ago. Today, Joe Biden and the Americans have stopped talking about Donald Trump. When it mattered during the election, they talked about Donald Trump, how he doesn't respect women agendas, how he doesn't respect minorities, how he doesn't respect the office of the president, and they voted him out. They made a mistake, and it took them 5 years. We made a mistake too in 2016. We have progressed a little bit. We need to correct that mistake. And I think all of us that are here, and every Gambian for that matter, especially those of us that are in the diaspora, have to focus more on our education, more of our discussion to say, what are we going to do to make sure that once we change, what are some of the things that we need to start talking about? Education, food safety, healthcare, and this is what needs to matter. And each time I see people talking about, but you brought us Adama Barrow, but Adama Barrow is part of you, it scares me that after 5 years of the poverty and the suffering that is happening in our country, we're still talking about a mistake. Life is about a mistake. The reason why you're sitting where you are today is because you have done a lot of mistakes in your life, but you never gave up. And today, I bet you don't sit with your wife in the middle of the night saying, oh man, remember that mistake we did? Remember when we blew that money? Remember when we screwed up this? No, you talk about what do we do in the future? This is what we need to change our mindset and understand that nations are built based on mistakes. Nations are built based on trial and errors, and nations are built on people that think about the future. And that's where we need to focus as a group of people to say, what is the United Democratic Party going to do? We just sold you our 5-point agenda, from youth to healthcare to infrastructure, technology. We're telling you that we do have a plan. And when we talk about these plans more, then you put on more responsibility on the United Democratic Party that when they come, that's what they're going to do. But if we spend this time just trying to talk about all these mistakes that happen, and yes, mistakes have happened, and betrayals happen in politics and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, one thing is very clear. We have a very ineffective government, we have a very corrupt government, and we have an incompetent leadership who is there right now, bent on spending every single penny instead of taking care of our hospitals, our education systems. He's spending it to get reelected, and he needs to go. And that's the most important part of the discussion. I hope that
that is clear, and I'm glad that you take the mistake part. I think we all made a mistake there. That's what I want to hear. Another thing that you mentioned during your speak is that you said that like the diaspora was not we don't have we don't have a united diaspora umbrella because of our personal differences. Waiting for our question. I think our personal agendas. I think that part I can just say we as Gambians, we are not just united. I don't think it has anything to do with our personal agendas, because we still can have a united front umbrella if we definitely wanna put our difference aside and then come to a collective, collective set of goals to get
Let me ask you.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a united Gambian umbrella, what is going to be your agenda?
Well, what is going to be our agenda? We will sit down and then talk about it, because like you said we suppose. I mean, they wanted to make us as I don't know what district you want. You said the
8th region.
Great or whatever. Don't you know that we can have a representation if we push it in the National Assembly? That will.
Why do you need a representative from the diaspora if you have a representative in URR that is representing me.
Do you have a voice, you, to the representative that you have in URR? I don't have a voice with my representative.
I don't have a voice because today there's no political will for me to vote. If there is a political will for me to vote, once I start voting, I regain my voice and my citizenship back. That's what we don't have. Once we have that, how are you going to pick a diaspora representative? Now you're going to have another special elections. You're going to have divided people that are sitting in Atlanta, in DC. All Gambians need to understand is we don't need to be treated extra special. I am from Basse. I want Basse to be taken care of. URR, my National Assembly member. When it comes to the diaspora, I want to have a strong local organization in California that will support me as an individual. And then my foreign affairs, in case I have any other external government issues or have seen other opportunities that the government can benefit from, then I will tap into them. But to say we have one when we have a foreign affairs ministry, I think it's just doubling our efforts. Today, you're focused on something else. But if you have a strong local organization in New York, if you have any family issues to keep the community entertained, to keep your values together, you can come together and do things together. But if you have other national issues, then the foreign ministry is there. Rather than the foreign ministry is the umbrella organization of all Gambians. And they focus on one thing, to support Gambians abroad and to ensure that they tap into the Gambians abroad. It's very simple. I think this whole idea of us getting a representative, who do you pick? How do you pick that person? Who picks that person? Right now, we can't even vote. How do we vote for that person? If we're going to pick someone here, we have to vote. So why don't we fight for our rights to vote first? Once we have that, we're part of the Gambian system. Then we can talk about other things. Right now, even if you wanted to vote, you have to not only be there to register, then you have to fly over to go and vote again. When we have people in Guinea-Conakry, Senegal, voting in your neck of the woods and my neck of the woods over here. That, I think we need to start looking at our problems and say, let's not just try to fix it. You and I don't have any problem. I don't have any problem with the guy in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, in New York, in Washington, DC. We just live in different regions and different times and have different organizations. We don't have any problems. But once we all start voting, we become a very strong bloc, then they will start respecting us. It's just like the gay community in the United States. They were not respected at all. But today, no presidential candidate comes without engaging them, because they have shown one thing, that they came together, stayed united, and made sure that their agendas are pushed. That's what we need to do in our individual organizations. Once they get stronger, and then we're part of the Gambia, then we will start getting connection. The laws will gradually start changing. You are here today. No matter how qualified you are, there's certain jobs you can't get into the Gambia. Is that right? No, it's not. That doesn't have anything to do with you and I not being united. It has to do with you have a government in place that doesn't have the political will, because they're still so scared of you. They even took your citizenry right from you to be able to vote.
Right. Okay, that's clear. Just a follow up on that, diaspora. You mentioned that diaspora, relationship with diaspora. This government don't have that. But let me tell you, this government used to have it. And it looks like every government used to have it. But once diaspora become critical about the government started to make diaspora an enemy. What would change in the UDP government if we started to speak out? Because if that government comes in its place, people will have to speak up, because speaking up will continue forever and ever, as long as there is government in places and people are, things are missing, people are not completely satisfied, which will never happen. What will happen? Wouldn't they also have issue with diaspora?
Well, put it this way, and I believe Mr. Cisse said that he's a hotel manager, and he used to be a hotel manager. Almost 80% of the person's problem is the one that you don't listen to. If you listen to people and you just have a conversation and a relationship with them, you will find out there's a lot of tension that is already diffused. What is happening is that Our government have refused to engage us because they're just scared of us. I'm sure you're probably a manager somewhere. I'm a manager. I am very careful of that very critical employee that I have. That is the employee I want to listen to the most. The diaspora is one of the most vocal, but one of the easiest today to satisfy. If anybody comes into the office, you give us a couple of things, we're done. We want to help them. We don't want anything. You, Mr. Swane, Mr. Cisse, or Mr. Drame, today, if somebody were to send you an employment letter from the Gambia government, you're not just going to sign there and say, yes, I'll take the job. You're going to really think about it. Does it make economic sense? Are you leaving the comfort that you're here to go over there? Are you leaving your family over here? These are all things that you're going to have to think about. So at the end of the day, but you're still supporting Gambia because here you are sitting talking about Gambia. So you don't need anything from there. What you want is to support them. And the government needs to look at us, like I said, not as the diaspora, but as Gambians who traveled out of Gambia. When you start looking at us, looking at me as somebody from Basi URR, I am less threatening than somebody who is in America, who is aware, educated, and wants everything else. Treat me like somebody who is in URR, as a URR citizen, treat you like wherever you're from, and then you will start to understand that there's no major problem. It's just that they're scared of us. But just because somebody is scared of you or somebody is complaining doesn't mean you have to all of a sudden abandon them or put them on the side, because then they're going to start this rebellion and this big fighting against you. And sooner or later, you can't keep everybody happy. So engage the diaspora, have them come over there like they did when Change Force happened. I never went to New York. I never went to Gambia after that, because to me, that was less. I was after freedom, and we got freedom. But our leaders, once they got there, especially Barrow, once he started getting challenged, all of a sudden he picks a few people in the diaspora, brought them in, and the diaspora became his enemy. And that's what Yahya Jammeh did. And Yahya Jammeh, if he had to do it all over again, I bet you he would have done it different. So we're not a threat at all. We shouldn't be looked at as a threat. You know.
Thank you. Okay, I will give my co-panelists, a chance if they have any question. Then we can begin wrapping it up. Salman Famara.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sawane. Thank you, MB, for those brilliant explanations out there with regards to the diaspora, thing. I'm sure as we'll figure that out as we go along, because the more we get united, the better. Yeah, definitely. And we need to have a body which is going to be responsible for that. So in this case, I want to go to the United Democratic Party, because I'm from Combo, and then also I'm an environmentalist. And in the last 5 years or so, we were very concerned about how our fisheries resources has been overexploited by foreign investors, particularly the Chinese, that are taking so much of our pelagic fisheries resources, the Chalos, the Moroccos, and the Yaiboyos. These are the resources that our poor local people, the poor coastal communities, depend on for their livelihood. And these are the products that they sell out there in the market and then feed their families. Now with these fish meal factories in the Combo South, particularly in Kartong, coming to Gunjur and Sanyang, they are posing a lot of threat to our marine resources, but also polluting the environment. So I have been in the forefront with my colleagues, Ahmed and others, trying to engage the government, having a background in environmental and serving the National Environment Agency before coming to the US. And then I was the program officer for coastal and marine environment. So this means all the coastline in the Gambia, from Bunyadu in the north, all the way down to Kartong, is under my domain. That's something that, I usually oversee. And I work with the fishermen, I work with environmentalists, I work with the hoteliers, and I work with other community-based organizations, just to make sure that our coastline is protected. And I can tell you for a fact, the National Environment Management Act is very explicit about where development can take place and what kind of environmental activities we can allow. Now, of course, we know some of these fish meal factories were established during Jammeh's administration. That means they didn't follow the right procedure, but then yet they continue to establish because the government give them support, right? Now, I just want to know, because I look at your key 5 points agenda, and I didn't see environment on it. I'm not saying you don't have anything to do with environmental issues, but your key 5 points, there's nothing on environment there on those 5 points, or environment did not come out as a thematic area in that key 5 points. And then I want to know what the UDP government, if you come to office, what are you going to do to ensure that our livelihood, the resources that we depend on for our livelihood, because bonga fish used to be very plenty in Combo. You know, you can go there with $10, you buy a lot. Growing up in Brufut at my age, those days, probably at 7 or 8 years old, we'll go to Brufut Beach. We have a lot of bananas coming in those days. At the age of 7 years old, I would push a banana from the beach side up to the main road, and the banana will throw out a fish to me. And then pushing 2 or 3 bananas, I can go home with a plenty of fish that my family can feed over a week and we will not finish it, right? And then those charlos were so big compared to what we are seeing today. So over exploitation is definitely contributing to the decline of fish population in our country. And these are the very resources that the Chinese also depend on to make fish meal, you know, to make this fish powder and then export it to China to feed the pigs, because they're running pig farms in China, and then the cheapest they can buy is to get the fish meal from Africa. And because they are getting this fish very cheap from us, and then they make it to powder and sell it. And then the fish oil they get as well, it's not being sold in the Gambia, it's going into the international market. But yet they are polluting our environment, you know, and the space that the fish meal was established was a fish drying area for the women of Gunjur. They were promised that they're going to be compensated. They were promised that they're going to make their roads. They promised they are going to employ over 3,000 youths. All of this is not happening. And we know that Mr. Alaji Conte, who is a big supporter of UDP, is part of the management of this fish mill in Gunjur. And I want to know what UDP is going to do when they come to power to ensure that my mom, who paid my school fees, was a fishmonger. And then through that, her money and her effort, that's how some of us get educated. And there are a lot of women out there in Gunjur doing the same to feed their families. So I know directly that my life has improved, or my family was dependent on these resources. And not even only in Brufut or in Combo, because we have seen a lot of fish trucks coming from Gunjur, Katong, and the others. They are going to your area in Basse, you know, try to sell chalo over there. So this means even the people of Basse now, they might be seeing shortage of chalo there right now. And then all of this is coming from Combo. So if it is not enough for us, obviously, people in CRR and the URR and the LRR that used to, because when I was at a posting, I used to be in Kia. You know, when the chalo truck is coming, everybody come out of the roadside waiting to buy chalo from these people that goes all the way out. So you can imagine what those families are going through right now. So my concern is, MB, I don't see environment on your 5-point agenda. But also I want to know what the UDP government is going to do to help regulate, because obviously these people are violating our environmental and fisheries laws. And then we have seen our government of the Gambia continuing to protect them, because they were arraigned by the National Environment Agency, dragged them to court on 5 points, you know, for environmental violation. And then all of a sudden, we have seen the press officer at the State House, Fatou Bojang Sissoho, and came out and make a press release that it is going to be solved out of the court. These people are no longer going to be taken to court anymore. But that out of court settlement, we saw what happened. You know, nothing come out of it. The people, the environmentalists are still, their court case is still dragging. And then we know Aissatou Touré, when he was a vice president or the minister of trade before, she also made a visit to Gunjur and then trying to say something about this environmentalists, you know, trying to make, you know, their work like if they are a group of angry youths who are against that. And then Dr. Jane, now who is a member of the UDP, has been in the forefront in this environmental protection. And at some point, he was arrested with some other youths of Gunjur, taken to court, and then the court freed them because they were on the right track, because those guys installed a pipe that was directly, discharging waste material in the ocean, and which is against the National Environment Management Act. I'm working here in the United States in the Maryland. I work with the county government here, and I'm a waste specialist. I'm working in a treatment plant that is, being administered by the Charles County here in Maryland. So obviously there are laws that you have to follow before you discharge wastewater in the ocean or even in any water body, because it has an health implication. Now, I'm very concerned about this. I'm not asking you to give details if you don't know, but I'm really concerned if UDP, as one of the biggest political party, and then maybe one of the greatest opposition, if they come to office, I'm worried whether my people are going to be safe. I'm worried whether our environment is going to continue to be protected. I'm worried whether the foreign investors that comes to our country will go the right procedures without government backing them on things that are illegal, and they continue doing exploiting our marine resources. And the Gambia is not only a signatory to various international conventions and agreements at the level of the United Nations, but other regional agreements. And then we are violating all these agreements right now. So what is the point? And what confidence do we have that the UDP government will definitely, put the priority of the local communities at this stage? Thank you.
Wow.
Wow. Okay.
Wonderful.
That's a good one, and quite a stretch. But Mr. Drame, nothing in life is guaranteed. The family that you have, the marriage that you got into it in good faith. And in that good faith, you worked really hard. The United Democratic Party showed 5 points. CA showed 10 points. Somebody else can show 20 points. But I have always believed that even when you're eating your food, you have a plate of food, you don't take the entire bowl and just put it in your mouth. You start eating in bits and pieces. That's why we're trying to show the Gambians the bits and pieces of an entire government to be when United Democratic Party is put into office. Of those is the 5 points that we shared with you. Is environment part of it? Very much so. Has it been mentioned on this? No. Will it be mentioned? Yes. At the end of the day, what you need to understand is, and one of the things that you have said here, is that there is all these acts in place. The Gambia is not short of laws in the book. What we're short of is people that are willing to execute those things, because we don't have the right political will over there. Part of the reason why some people are so scared of a government led by Alhaji Ousainou Darboe is the fact that they don't see how they can corrupt this guy. They don't see how they can come and go informally to a guy who has led his entire life in a formal setting. Because Alhaji Ousainou Darboe understands the law. He understands the consequences of being corrupt. At the end of the day, the responsibility that he has shown in his life, the responsibility that other people like Scatter Jana, like you mentioned, have shown, is what we're going to make sure. All you've got to do is make sure that government, there's nothing wrong. We're in the United States here. We're making a good living. We have our businesses, but there are laws that we have to abide by. And those laws, when we break them, there are penalties. And there are people that hold us responsible. That is what we lack in the country. And we lack it because we don't have the right leadership willing to work. What every Gambian sees right now is that Adama Barrow is corrupt. He's building his homes. He's spending money recklessly. So they're also trying to do that. And by doing that, they break the laws. They don't follow on their jobs. They just want somebody to pay them so that they can get, money just like Barrow. If you have somebody responsible there at the helm and a government that is responsible, these people are going to be held accountable. See, Alhaji Ousainou Darboe as a president is not going to tell the fishermen or the case workers at the riverside. There's a fisheries minister who in turn has permanent secretaries, who in turn has committees and other governmental agencies that need to be held responsible. We have to look at government as our jobs that we do right now. And that is the fact that one person cannot see through it. But if you don't have a funnel where everybody's held responsible, where when you look on top, you see responsibility. At your jobs, when you go there, that manager that shows responsibility, that comes to work on time, that does his job right, is the one that you respect, is the one that you want to be like. But the one that doesn't do their job, chances are you might like that person, because when you're late, that person will not reprimand you. When you don't do your job right, they will not reprimand you. And it's just a matter of time before that person leaves for a responsible person to come in, and then you find yourself in trouble, disciplinary action, and being terminated. So to answer your long question is the fact that, is the United Democratic Party responsible enough to be able to enact these laws that are in the country? I think so. I think we have the right body. What is happening in the combos is a big concern. When I go to Gambia, I frequent Tangier quite a bit. Actually, I love going there, talking to the women, and I have done that almost like I do it at least once a week to go there. And I'm glad that you mentioned this whole idea of when you're taking fish, you see them take fish and throw it to you. I used to see them do that, and I see kids running around with their bucket. As they take the fish from the river into the trucks, they will be dropping stuff, and kids will be picking up and putting it in their bucket. So I see where the tradition comes from, given that since your time that has been happening. But at the end of the day, it is the fact that we need a responsible government. We need Olu Dibawadas. We need somebody like the Talib Bensoudas, who have shown that you can be in office, despite all the challenges, you can bring about development. We have seen that in Banjul under Rohima Duglo. We have seen that under Fode Danjo. We have seen that all across where UDP candidates are currently working. Talib Bensouda is one of the most successful mayors in the history of our country. KMC is being transformed, and he's doing that under a hostile government. Give Talib Bensouda a President Dabo, and you will see the development that is happening. At the end of the day, it's just a matter of laws. I mean, are we able to execute this? I think we are. And people know that Alhaji Hussein Dabo is very serious. He's going to pick very serious people. And you can be assured that I cannot sit here and guarantee you that everything is going to be peachy. But you can be guaranteed of a very serious government that is going to work very hard to make sure that the average Gambian is affected, because United Democratic Party is the only party that you will look at from Combo, Combo all the way to Koina. We are established right through. We're in touch with the women. We know their problems. And since we know their problems, we're in a very much better position to be able to address their problems. Some of these people don't need much in life. All they want is their waters, their narcos fence, so that they can work very hard, give them good refrigeration, give them good connection so that they can sell their produce and take their kids to school. Many of us were put through school through these narcos, through these rivers selling fish, through selling ice and those kind of things. And that is exactly what these people also want. And when they get that opportunity, we're going to have doctors, lawyers, and successful people like you and I. So at the end of the day, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Famara, are you there?
I'm here.
Yeah. So MB was asking, I hope that answered your question. I mean, he just specified that he probably wouldn't be able to tell you in depth all those things that you mentioned, but they have a structure in place. They have people. So I hope you heard that, what he said.
Yes, I heard it very much. I heard it very well, and it's really convincing. And it's not giving any promise, but he's saying that they are really going to work on that, and then see what they can do. Definitely. But I'm glad that you understand it. So,
yeah. My only take here is that that's a key point that they miss. I mean, this environmental thing. Is it because they're trying to narrow down the 5 point, squeeze it around to the point that, it can be catchy, but this key important point to leave that out was either an oversight or probably lack of attention.
No, it's not. It's not lack of attention, because if you had left education out, you would have people saying that is the fabric. So every single thing is important. Every section is important. Youth employment is important. Education is important. Agriculture is important. And public safety and health is important. So by not mentioning it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. And this is why people are welcome to go look at our whole manifesto. And if you go to udp.gm, it will give you a better understanding of what we're trying to do. But like everything else, like I said, if you have a plate of food that you're having lunch, you can't just take the whole plate and put it in your mouth. You do bits and pieces. And as you do that, and as we get there, we understand what the problem is, then you can really try to really hone in and take care of the most important priorities and then walk your way down. But also it's going to be a team that is going to be very well diverse. Everybody's going to be doing, their ministries, everybody taking care of their private areas, and it's going to get done. So it's not that we overlooked it or it's not important. It's just that, what do you leave out? Tourism is not there. It's one of the most important things. It's a source of foreign exchange. It's a source of selling our country. It's a source of inviting investors. It's a source of our people understanding, creating employment. That is not mentioned over there. But if you look under all of these, public safety has to do with the environment also. It has to do with make sure food safety is also. So in a way, it is touched. It's just that it's not mentioned doesn't mean that it's not important or that we ignored it. So I hope you understand that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So thank you for that. I don't know if some have something, but there is one key thing here that our government models, and I want to bring that up, whether UDP government would do that. How would UDP government look like in terms of recycling these old people? I mean, when I say old means people who have been in civil service for ages, and they're talking about experience. Sometimes experience is not the key here. Inexperienced people who can take risk and bring innovations and create, use trial and error, can actually move a nation to a highest height. If you look at Paul Pagami, all these people, there is nothing like they have an extensive experience being in Jawara's government, bringing people in Jawara's government, combination of Jawara and Jammeh's government, having to recycle them again because of association or because of they have done something for the party, and having to give people position. I'm not saying you're not gonna have political appointees, but gee, don't just appoint somebody because they campaign for me or they, make our party successful. Look out for people with the credentials. I mean, even if they don't agree with you, if they can collectively commit to bringing, the knowledge and then the change we need, they shouldn't be left out. So I think this is a leadership approach that we lacked. If you look at us as Gambians, we kind of consider friends. Oh, I tell him Marco Ibrim Beje, I tell him Father Patioe, and all these things. People like leaders has to really take that, take it to another level whereby they want result-oriented, enterprises, result-oriented, visions. So I think with UDP and Useno being in government, we still want to understand how would this look like? Would it be the same thing like recycling, folks? When I see that, I get depressed. You have so much talent out there that can move this country to another level, who are not doing it for money, but they're doing it because they have a collective intention for better Gambia. So this is the area that I think concerns most of the youth and most of the people of our caliber. And I want to know, as a generation of mine, Mr. Krubally, what do you think would be your advice to UDP government or Ousainou Darboe's leadership as a president in this area? Because this is a concern.
Very, very, very important question, and something that needs to be addressed. Mrs. Swane, some 10 years ago, you were 10 years younger. In another 10 years, you'll be 10 years older than you are today. Does that make you invaluable at any point? Does that make it today, those of us that are older?
Well, Mr. Krubally, if I'm 30, 40, 60 years older, I'm just talking about that, not 10 years, but yeah. I'm talking about Jawara's regime and then Jammeh's regime. Those were too far behind. We should look into something else. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm coming. And I was just, setting up your answer.
Age discrimination is illegal and unethical. No government should sit and say that we're going to forcefully retire older people. You are a young man today, a member of your family. Chances are you're running that family. But if there's any elders in your house, you don't come and tell them that my word stays. What I say is what's going to happen. You work with them. You take their wisdom, you learn from them, and they gradually understand. When their time is out, they gradually walk out. What I am getting at is that we cannot go into this forcefully trying to force people to retire, because it is not only illegal, it is unethical. They have experience. But when you look at the United Democratic Party, you're seeing Talib Bensouda, you're seeing Rohilo, you're seeing Kumba Jaidi. You and I and everybody on this panel are older than those people. But you're also seeing people like Amadou Sane that are very well seasoned. You're seeing people like Loya Dabo who are very well seasoned, educated, ethical, with experience. This is what builds a team. A team, just because someone is young and educated, doesn't mean that they need to be there. We have to have a government that is willing to blend the Gambians, both experienced youth, and make sure that we teach people. Today, if they pick you and put you into the foreign services, the chances are you wouldn't know where you're heading to. Chances are you wouldn't even know the protocols of what it takes. But you're educated, you're young, you basically have met all the qualifications that you're saying. But if you have somebody who was in the foreign services before that is able to mentor you, or that is able to take you in as a junior, and then gradually that person retires. But most important, the reason why you're even seeing a lot of Americans working into their 70s and 80s is because retirement is very hard in the United States over here, because you need money in order to retire. So we also need to take a look at and say, before we forcefully push these people off the table, which they're not gonna go, what kind of packages do we have for them? Do we have good retirement packages for these people? What are we going to do to make sure that they're able to live after working all through these years? A better social security system. So it's a whole package. That's why I get very uncomfortable when we just started saying this is youth. Some of the youngest people that we have in this current government have become some of the biggest disappointments. We have young people in this government, but today they're busy campaigning for a government instead of them standing for what people really believe that they were going to do. I'm not going to mention any names, but we all seen that. Yeah. So just to say that you want to bring a youth there, I don't believe in that. I believe that as a leader, you need to sit and look. The young are here, the old are here. How do you blend this team? How do you bring the women folks? How do you bring the men folks? And make sure that you have a government. And if you look at the United Democratic Party, we are one of the parties that are led by women, youth, and very well experienced people. And you see Honorable Kemisi Jammeh and those people, they're there. They're going with the youths. They're teaching them how to lead. And like Hussein Dabo said something very important, and I want to communicate this to any youth. You might think you're educated. You might think you know the country. You might have the name recognition and all of that stuff. Unless you know the problem of the Gambian people, you will not be able to solve their problems. The Gambian people's problem right now, we're thinking, oh, we just got to get educated people there to do it. No, you don't really understand until you go into Basse, Kosemar, Tamba Sansang, Badibu Salikenye, and understand what do they really want. They don't want internet connection over there. Some of those women don't even know how to do internet connection. Some of them, all they want is a borehole to be able to plant that jato, that lettuce, so that when they take it, they can go sell it. If they don't sell it, so that they will not throw it away. Tomorrow they can sell it like a supermarket. Should we set up supermarkets for them, boreholes for them, fence, make sure the infrastructure is there so that they can transport their stuff? This is what we need. We should not only trying to just say, we need old people go, young people come. In some 20 years, some young man comes to your face and says, well, you're too old. You need to go just sit and wait for death. You're going to fight back because you're not. You know, at the end of the day, experience is good. Over here, our president of the United States, Joe Biden, is older than Alhaji Ousainou Darboe, is older than Kemisi Jammeh. But today, Americans, young, more sophisticated, educated, have picked an old person to lead them based on what? Experience, ethics, respect, and a good agenda. And this is what we should live by as a country.
Thank you. Sam, you have anything before we close it?
Yeah, I know time is going here.
Yeah, I
But
think
all of you
yeah,
mentioned very important things and you asked very good questions. And, he has very good points that he
yeah,
responded with as well. And I totally agree with him. I totally agree with him. And that's why one thing I'll add to that is, if you look at the comprehensive civil service reform that I put together, and I put it on Facebook too. It's a great tool and for any government to use and really look at that and leverage some information. They may not be able to do everything there, but be able to do that, use that, and really set up a government, set up a great civil service in our country. Because yes, you're going to need a blend of people. You cannot just retire all the old people with the experience and then bring the new folks that don't know how to do certain things. That's important. It's always good to blend the people, but the most important thing is as long as they can do the job. And who can do the job? If you follow the proper recruiting, hiring, and selection, or recruiting, selection, and hiring process from my civil service reform proposal, you will get the right people that can do the job and move the country forward. We do need experienced people in the system, but we also need educated labor force. Very, very important in any economy. If you want to build a country, you need an educated labor force. That's very important. And it's going to be a combination. It's going to be a mixture of young and old to be able to move the country forward. So thank you for all your comments and thank you for all the questions as well. I don't want to take any more time because time is really a factor here for me, especially. So I just want to close by saying this is a great, for me, this is a great session and definitely good to hear from Mr. Krubally. And this is my first time meeting you, but virtually, but it's important to have different guests and people like that will come in and sell the agenda off the party. And not only that, but most importantly, talk about what is good of our country, because what we're doing today, what we're doing, and in fact, on my own platform called Solutions for Gambia, I'm the founder of Solutions for Gambia. What I talk about and what everyone talks about there is what is the solution for our problems. We look at every single problem and want to find solutions, and solutions are very important because at the end of the day, that is what we need. We need to be able to solve problems. So thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Famara, any final thoughts before?
Thank you.
Mr. Krubally
Thank you
goes?
so much. Thank you so much, MB. Good to have you here. Certainly, I think we'll invite you again, have some more other discussions. But I'm really impressed by your deliberations, and then you really convinced me on certain things. So hopefully, let's wait and see how it goes. Yeah, but we're very glad to have you here. Thank you so much for your time and everything you're doing for Gambia. And then please work on the diaspora thing because we need it. We are many, and then there's a lot we can do if we come together and then look at the bigger picture, which is the Gambia, the common denominator here. We might have our differences, but we definitely need a body that is going to represent the whole Gambia in the diaspora, and I know we can do it. So let's just push that agenda, and go forward. And I hope it will happen, when your president is in charge, then things will make it easy. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Famara. Well, so to close, Mr. Krubally, you'll have the final word, but I just want to take this opportunity to thank you and my co-panelists here for this great discussion. I didn't expect it to be this, this educative and this convincing. You've really done an outstanding job. I think, we couldn't even have a better person than you on the side of UDP, which we've been trying to get, some people here to come and kind of highlight some of the, interesting points. And I am definitely convinced with the fact that you take responsibility for the mistakes and then moving forward. That area really convinced me. And I was also convinced with the fact that, the blending of youths and this thing. I think your final thought was also very, very powerful in convincing me that we shouldn't just recycle. We shouldn't just forget about this, recycling folks, but we should also perhaps keep them if they are really doing their job, if they can do their job without being corrupted. Yeah. So my idea of having the youth coming in is to give a different perspective, but I cannot agree with you and Sam that, it's always have to have them around, to lean on them and find, especially when you say about the retirement package, that is very essential. In Gambian settings, we don't have retirements. And when some of these people haven't saved much money, you have to find life for them. And I can see myself in that position and understand how that works. So I think our government need to do better things on that so that they can transition them. Having given their experience to younger folks, they can transition them and have a better life. I really care about our senior people because they were here before us, they built it before us, and they were our elders. So that is a very strong point that you mentioned. I'm thankful for that because I didn't see it that way. So it's always have to hear from your senior. Thank you so much. And you have your final words.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Obviously, thanks to Sam. It's really great meeting you, Sam. I'm sure one of these days we'll meet. You're all welcome to come to California. I see that Mr. Mfamara is a very shy person. He has his camera off, and hopefully next time he will have his camera on so that we can get to see.
Yeah, Mfamara, he's at work. That's why. But
Yeah.
he probably would. That's why he doesn't show his camera. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And one thing I just want to say is, and to anybody that's listening, nothing in life is guaranteed, and we all have to look at what we have right now to be able to make decisions to move forward. When we look at the Gambia today, all we have to do as voters is, take our emotions out of it and understand that what we're looking for is a better life. What we're looking for is a better country, and we just want to compare our lives. The last 5 years, are we better off the last 5 years than we are today? And the answer would be no for most of the Gambians. And this is what we're really fighting against. We're fighting not only a political change, but a lifestyle change to make sure that we're able to create jobs, make sure that these doctors that are coming out of colleges. I mean, just a couple of days ago, a bunch of doctors graduated, a bunch of lawyers graduated. What are these people going to do in that country? Unemployment is very high. The United Democratic Party is an option to the National People's Party, which has failed the Gambian people. Adama Barrow has failed the Gambian people from day one. When we came as a coalition together and we picked him to be able to have a transitional government of 3 years. He failed the 3 years. We didn't want war, we didn't want fighting. We said, let's go 5 years. Now he wants to go 5, 10, 15. But most importantly, he has taken our resources. When our women are dying in the hospitals, when we don't have water and electricity, when accidents are so rampant in the country. Today, I saw one of the worst accidents today. When crime is very high, but he's spending millions into his campaign. He's spending millions into his own life. His son is sitting in Washington State today, in the United States over here, in a mansion that you and I cannot afford. He's sitting in a mansion in Mankamangkunda that you cannot afford. These are the real issues. The real issues are not Alhaji Ousainou Darboe and Adama Barrow and Halifa Sallah. The real issues is that we have a government that is bloated, a government that is corrupt, a government that is incompetent, that has no consideration for the people. Alhaji Ousainou Darboe has been with the Gambians through. He has been a very successful lawyer, a very successful individual, a human rights defender who has been very resilient and been there with the Gambian people through the dictatorship. Fought for us, shown that he's resilient, shown us that he cannot be bought. He lives like the average Gambian lives today in his homes that he had by himself, even when he was vice president. Yalong, Mr. Sawane, Dolton be Menkela, Nyanta Kol Jubelale, Messiri Nyame, be Baluri Nyame. La Lonko, ko Alabe Tamansero Itaka Molale, me Balumen na bi Balu Nya Rumute. Hani Alabato Nibala Gambia B, Niko Yesal Jom that Ladol Bije Buka Giosoro. Na Muso be Fakal Loptanolto, Ndulman Karang, Balu Kolearing, Mano Dabe Kolearing, Sugro Dabe Kolearing. I can the Hanintel member Muslim to be. Na Muslimea is willing a sali, but in Sidanga Sunyaroke. For 22 years, we lived a life where in willing a sali, Nafuko Mumo Kendoleti, but in Sidanga Boy Musolka, in Sidanga Musol Kelendi, in Sidanga Mol Fa, in Sidanga Mol Lipa. We have to change that. Nyantalo na ko bi memo problem ot wolam nyinti ko ban wodabe kolar ni Gambia. Kuranti je jioti je bari ngaje aram barobe na floti nyakal. Ani nga wuli nga lonko pruntel fana nga kawam fama prunga ki harma jonti with dignity. We have to be able to baluo is one of the most important things. Nate bulu bi nyaje korratio be kala sunguti dron alon ko am baluo sura men bila la famila. Wala te kering Gambia bi mano dabe kolere sugro dabe kolere tulob kama jabu kama but we live in one of the most fertile soils. Yo memo yo to be a dabe kolere in Gambia le bi katambi China katambi United States whilst baba mol bulu bame aka fari bari nga molle nati mele alon ko nga wolle bunya katambi telephone la molti ni tata bi altel be alsalla ko do ki jali million na tara Gambia alte business of thinking ola ndet sita with the Minister of Information and the Minister of Tourism, and I have a Gambian who was willing to invest millions of dollars in the Gambia. They refused him access. But when somebody comes from China with $10,000, you will have access to Adama Barrow right away because he or she is willing to give somebody. And this is what we need to understand. Our lives are at stake. Your life is at stake. Don't wait to see what happens with Famara. Don't wait to see what happens in December. Be a part of the change that you want. Be a part of something. Somebody worked for it. That person is nowhere to be found. That person did it not for himself only, but he did it to develop a country, a nation, where now we have immigrants all over the world coming over here, be able to live. We also must sacrifice for our people. We must understand that it's not going to be pretty. Some of us will die, some of us will go to jail, some of us, but what is most important is that we work hard for a better country. And I challenge all of you guys and anybody that's watching, that someday, 20, 30 years from now, you're not going to be anymore, I'm not going to be anymore, 40 years from now, 50 years from now, what are we going to leave behind as our legacy? What you're doing over here is very important. What I'm doing is very important. Furiyate, Hamentayate, but main important na wala mnyendiko Americano le menke purite balu mfana mbe wala tikam pour Gambia le baru sini modo be bala Guinea Conakry sini modo be bala Guinea Bissau wobe Cairo men talla Gambia ndel be wala doku kambi. So let's understand that we have to work very hard, but this is not about Alhaji Ousainou Darboe or Adama Barrow. This is about the fact that Gambians are not able to put food on the table with dignity. Gambians don't have water, Gambians don't have electricity, the sun is burning us 24/7. Gambians are not living with dignity today. And we're telling you, you have an option in the United Democratic Party under the leadership of Alhaji Ousainou Darboe and a lot of competent people that are out there willing to work, that have proven themselves. So I hope anybody that's listening, you will understand to go out there and talk to your family. Make sure that they vote against Adama Barrow, they vote for change, and they vote for the United Democratic Party. So thank you so much. I know this is the first time I'm on your platform. I watch you every once in a while. I'll be glad to come back again. But this is the essence of being a citizen, is to get out there and just speak our minds and hopefully convince the people.
Yeah, thank you. And that's what we do here. That's why we take our time, come out here every Sunday to give this opportunity for Gambians to sensitize them so that they can make a conscious decision. Again, we are impartial here when we come here, but we tell what the government is not doing right and whatever that will make Gambia, go forward. So definitely we are in agreement with you on that. And then thank you so much for your time. And then giving you the opportunity to sell United Democratic Party, just like other parties have been doing. So we look forward to have you back or other members of your party. Again, this platform is open to everyone.
Thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Favara. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sam.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you all.
All right.
Thank you.
Great.
See you. Take care.
So you're looking smart today.
Thank you.
I like your suit and the background too.
And the background, yeah. New
Yeah,
background.
thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Favara. Thank you for